I don't think there's ever been an NBA player who suffered as drastic of a decline as Russell Westbrook, especially because he's barely even aware of it, even though everyone else is. Although the regression was inevitable as he slowly got worse and worse over the years, but at times with the Lakers, he didn't even look like an NBA player, just completely airballing jumpers or bricking shots that he's normally good at. His mid-range bread and butter turned stale. Westbrook got criticized so much for his abysmal play that people are starting to forget how good he was during his best years. I heard some say that, oh, he always had games like this, it's just on a bigger stage now. Is it because his strengths are no longer visible, so his weaknesses are on full display? Was his consistency always an issue even during his MVP season? We all know he's always had flaws, but in this video, let's rewind a bit and take a look at how good prime Russell Westbrook actually was. How's it going, folks? My name's Andy, and without further ado, let's get started. So to start things off, I think we can all agree that the 2016-17 season, the year Westbrook won MVP, this was by far the best season of his career. The first year after Kevin Durant left, it was a season of vengeance. Westbrook took it upon himself to carry this team to the playoffs, capping off a season averaging a 30-point triple-double. The first time any player has averaged a triple-double since Oscar Robertson in 1962. And along with 42 total triple-doubles in a season, he broke Oscar's previous record of 41. Not just that, but he secured it in spectacular fashion, hitting a buzzer-beating game winner that simultaneously eliminated the Nuggets from making the playoffs. Throughout the season, he showed a level of dominance that captivated fans and players alike. Some games he had were just absurd. The dude had 3 different 50-point triple-doubles. Like, what in the world is that? We've never seen anyone do this before. It was a jaw-dropping season for the history books. However, beneath the surface of Westbrook's electrifying plays and gaudy numbers, there were also problems that were quite visible and somewhat overlooked. I think one important thing to understand is that Westbrook's MVP season was an outlier. It was not the way he normally played. For example, he took over 7 threes a game that season, on the best percentage of his career. Prior to that, he only took like 4.5 threes max in any season before. Efficiency-wise, it was the last season Westbrook had where he was league average in efficiency. Since then, it's gone downhill. That year, he had a true shooting percentage of 55.4%, which was around average in 2017. I think when you have that much attention on you and your usage rate is so high because you're carrying the team every night, being a high-volume scorer with average efficiency is perfectly fine. Not everyone can be Steph Curry. I'd say that's actually really good for Westbrook because in most seasons before and after 2017, he was pretty much below average in almost every year. In fact, in all the seasons since his MVP year, his efficiency has fallen off a cliff. It's mostly because his three-point percentage severely regressed, along with his free throw percentage, a mystery that I actually made a whole video about a while back. Overall, Westbrook has never been an efficient scorer due to his knack for taking tough shots and being a poor three-point shooter. That's a bad combination for today's NBA landscape. So when his athleticism and speed deteriorated, he could not adapt. Nonetheless, many former players, former NBA legends, and even his peers came out and said this was one of the greatest seasons they've ever witnessed, and that Westbrook is most definitely the MVP, despite some opposing voices from the media. Allen Iverson stated, "When you're doing something in this day and age that we've never thought we would ever see again, as great as Kawhi is, as great as LeBron is, as great as James Harden is, as great as Isaiah is playing, what Russ is doing is incredible." Shaq said, "He's doing it by himself, and believe it or not, he's playing the right way. A couple years ago, everyone felt Russell's a little too selfish. Now he's making great passes, making great plays, leading his team and doing it by himself." Even Damian Lillard, who rarely ever compliments Russ, said he should win it over James Harden. While the players all praised Westbrook, the fans and media were a bit apprehensive and questioned his MVP nomination. The Thunder finished as the 6th seed in the West, the lowest seed for an MVP winner in over 40 years. There were arguments that James Harden should have won it, as his team was the 3rd seed and they had comparable numbers, though Harden was far more efficient because of free throws. The rebound difference was basically irrelevant because it was well known that Westbrook would take rebounds from his teammates, while Adams and the other bigs boxed out for him. Regardless, the narrative was way too strong. Westbrook getting his revenge after Durant's departure, Westbrook clinching the triple-double record, Westbrook finishing off the season incredibly strong, everything was in his favor. I'm not saying he didn't deserve MVP, he was fantastic, but it was one of the most polarizing choices in recent history. The narrative played a huge role. Besides that, it was also this season where he developed some unfortunate habits that carried over to the seasons following. There were plenty of games where Westbrook would get 10 assists very quickly, but then he wouldn't pass the ball much after that. Heck, there's a plethora of clips where Westbrook literally passes the ball on wide open shots, just to get that sweet triple-double. He was also well known for probably being the most lethargic player off the ball. Westbrook, despite his crazy athleticism and speed, he rarely ever cuts to the basket or tries to play off his teammates. It's either he has the ball and makes a play, or his teammates have the ball and he watches them. He did this quite a lot, but nobody really cared because the positives outweighed the negatives. At least in his prime, it did. As the years progressed and he declined, that was no longer the case. Everyone started to get frustrated. It doesn't help that, despite coming in as a former college Defensive Player of the Year, in the NBA, he didn't utilize his athleticism as well as he could have. Westbrook is one of those guys who he looks like and he acts like a competent defender, but in reality, that was never the case in the NBA. He gambles for steals a lot. He's always had trouble staying in front of his man, due to his lack of effort. A huge part of prime Westbrook's persona is not just his playstyle, but his attitude and demeanor. When it comes to his thought process, he exemplifies Mamba mentality. Heck, even Kobe himself said Westbrook's personality was the closest to his own. Peak Westbrook played with relentless energy, an explosive playstyle combined with an even more explosive presence. Fans and players alike gravitated towards his aura. Unfortunately, it's this type of mentality that also led to his stubbornness and the unwillingness to change. Because his playstyle worked well at his best, he felt like he can continue to play that way as he got older, and obviously, Westbrook had no shortage of confidence. While most elite point guards throughout NBA history were calm and calculated, Westbrook played off emotion and instinct. Perhaps that led to his shortcomings too, especially when it came to turnovers. So, how good was prime Russell Westbrook actually? An absolutely sensational player, a top 5 in the NBA at his peak. That MVP season was the most consistently dominant he's ever been, but he had trouble sustaining that level of volume and efficiency as the years went by. I think his lingering knee pain had something to do with it too. Everyone knew Westbrook was getting injections into his knees prior to every season, hence why he tends to always have a slow start. That's what happened in Houston and DC, but he picked it up as the season progressed. Westbrook has always been a volume scorer. He takes a lot of shots, and sometimes he doesn't hit a whole lot of them. Those type of games were common, even during his prime. But beyond the bad shots, the stat padding and turnovers, when prime Westbrook was on, he was a spectacle to watch. Anyway, that's all folks. I think Westbrook's fall into irrelevance has turned him into a laughingstock, and people use that as ammunition to discredit his past greatness. But that's not cool. At his best, everyone was impressed. Let me know your thoughts on Westbrook in the comment section. Do you foresee him ever changing his game to prolong his career? Or do you see him falling out of the league before his contract expires? Thank you all so much for watching. I hope y'all enjoyed the video, and of course, as always, I'll see you next time. Peace.